all. Welcome to another episode of Clue for Evidence News interview series. The theme for today's episode is digital forensic and cybersecurity. Well, digital forensic is a branch of forensic science which encompasses recovery and investigation of materials found in digital evidences, whereas security is a practice of defending our servers, computers, mobile devices, electronic devices, and data against malicious attack. And yet, these two are very crucial topic in today's era. To discuss more with regard to this topic, I have one of the most experienced faculty in the field of digital forensic science. I have Mr. Santosh Katsare sir today with us. Sir is an experienced digital forensic investigator who has an experience of about 20 years and is at present head of Digital Forensic Laboratory, New Delhi, India. Apart from his bachelor's, Sir also possesses additional qualifications such as CHFR, CEH, RHCSA, Advanced Cyber Forensic Course, CTAC, Cybercrime Investigation, etc. Sir has rich experience and extensive knowledge in the field of information security, digital forensic, cyber laws, cyber audit, and incident response. Sir also served as life member at Computer Society of India and advisor for computer hacking forensic investigator at Easy Council. Sir has been a speaker for a numerous number of national and international conferences and have also authored a lot of articles on the topic of information security and cyber forensic in number of reputed publications. And yet, on behalf of Clue for Evidence Foundation and our viewers, I heartily welcome Mr. Santosh Katsare, sir. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Okay, sir, let's move straight to the interview. Sir, you have such an extensive experience. So can you share your journey as a cybersecurity expert or digital forensic expert? How was the journey?
The journey was, what to say, it was not that smooth when we started with it 2 decades back, because cyber was a new thing and anyone coming into this field had to look for, you can say, his particular area of specialization. And when we spoke of cyber, it was mostly related to defensive fields and less of offensive fields or less of research fields such as cyber forensic. So initially 10 years, it was more of a IT kind of a scenario. We worked in IT, you can say information technology. And then later, say we switched to the most specialized fields such as digital forensics. And for the last 5 years, in fact, I will say that this field has picked up a lot, and there's a lot of research which have gone into this field, and there are a lot of, you can say, scope, and you can say there's a lot of new entrants in this field who are doing a wonderful job. So overall, as I said, the journey was, you can say, not that smooth, but in the last 5 years, yes, this field has picked up in a big way.
Okay, sir. So from your experience, what all are the major changes that occurred in last 5 years, as you mentioned?
If you see in the field of digital forensics, you have just defined digital forensics as such. Digital forensics and cyber forensics are actually interchangeably used. Mostly people use cyber forensics, but anything which is digital in nature and which can store information or on which analysis can be carried out is categorized as digital forensics. So cyber forensics is also part of digital forensics as such. In the last 5 years, if you see, there's a change in technology. For example, initially 5 years before, we had a lot of, you can say, computers as such, and we had few laptops, even laptops were there. But now the technology has changed. The technology has changed. Most of the devices or most of the, you can say, the e-commerce or transactions or you can say communication has shifted to the mobiles. So most of the devices which are coming for, you can say, the analysis or investigations are mobile related. They are mobiles. They are, you can say, iPad. They are smart devices. They are smart, you can say, smart televisions, CCTVs. So technology has changed over the last 5 years, and so has this field. So it has been evolving at a very high pace. And even in near future, I think it will be evolving at much higher pace than what it has done in the last 5 years.
Okay, sir. So, sir, what all types of crime have you investigated so far in this field?
See, in digital forensics, every crime has a digital element to it. Even if you say there's a normal kidnapping, or you can say any murder or something. Nowadays, well, you have a lot of digital assets. Like a person has a mobile, right? There are CCTV which is covering it. There are many other things which are there, which are digital in nature, which store information. So every crime is associated with the digital asset. So it's said that at least in a single crime which happens, there you will have some digital evidence available with it. So it's like that. So you have it everywhere. And in the last 5 years, as you've asked, what all types of crimes have been investigation, you can see a normal cyber crimes also being investigated. There are other crimes such as you can say espionage, or you can say there are some crimes related at the national level. There are crimes related to forgery, financial frauds. So these are the various types of crimes, extortion, or there are some crimes related to pornography. Nowadays, crimes have started related to, you can say, cryptocurrencies. So there are a lot of crimes which have been dealt with in the last few years. But the latest being crimes related to cryptocurrencies and ransomware as such, which are there in present.
Sir, so can you tell us how the investigation will be done in case of cryptocurrency and ransomware since they are very new?
Okay, these are the new types of actually crimes which are happening, and once we get such cases related to ransomware or cryptocurrencies, basically these are interlinked. I'll call them. If something happens, if you purchase something from the dark web, which is not readily available in the market, usually the you can say the perpetrators use cryptocurrencies to buy such items. Maybe it's illegal drugs, or maybe it's illegal weapons, or any other thing which is not there in the open market as such, are readily available to the user. Similarly, the same cryptocurrencies are also used to extract ransom if a ransomware attack has taken place on your systems as such. Because this is basically cryptocurrencies is the easiest mode of collecting, you can say, money without people knowing and without even being tracked, right? So most of the cases which are related to ransomware, they asked you can the ransom in terms of cryptocurrencies, in a particular type of cryptocurrencies, and they give you a particular, you can say, a link which is related or linked to a wallet, and in that form they actually ask for a bitcoin, or it's a 1.5 bitcoins as such. So mostly the cases related to ransomware, they have to be investigated separately in different light, but however they do have the angle of you can say cryptocurrencies associated with it. Like I'll give you a simple example. If there's a ransomware attack usually takes place on critical information, basically government, you can say government sector, or you can say sector which is critical, such as railways or banking, or you can say nuclear facilities, or anything which is critical to a nation. And those are mostly targeted by ransomware attacks. But even the hospitals, for that that massive of late, a lot of hospitals have been targeted somewhere, and people have paid ransom in some cases. But in some cases, there have been ransomware attacks even on individual machines. If you see, there are different types of ransomwares, and it's a difficult task. But there are few ransomwares where decryptors are also available. Means you can decrypt your, you can say, the files which are encrypted, which are available. In some cases, yes, you don't get the keys as such. So in forensics, actually, we try to find out if we're able to find the key which is required to decrypt the files, or if you're able to find out if there's any unencrypted files. For example, some ransomwares only encrypt system files. Your data files are intact. So if you're able to bypass the system, you are still able to get your data which is not encrypted. These are one. Some places you are able to find the key. If it's still live, maybe it's in the memory. In some cases, you are able to find out at least what type of ransomware is, and what it is doing, how is it working. So these are various things which are actually found out when ransomware forensics is considered, and cryptocurrency, of course, as I said, is interrelated with that. In cryptocurrency also, it's not that easy, but yes, investigations are on, and we are able to get some success in those type of cases also.
Okay, sir. Sir, for an forensically like cyber digital sound evidence, various documentation is required along with chain of custody. So can you quote them and tell us relevance also?
See now, once you say digital forensics, and once the case comes for investigation to a lab, like if some devices come in the lab, you cannot just accept the case because it requires proper documentation. Because at the end of the day, that case has to go to the court, and the court has to actually make it, means the court has to be satisfied with what you have done. So in that process, there are few documents which are required when the case is accepted at the lab. The most important is the chain of custody form, which actually tells you from the time of seizure, from the time you have collected that from the accused, where all that evidence has gone, who all has handled it, what is that evidence type, make, model, and then if there's anything additional, you can say information about that. Plus someone else seizes it, it is then transferred to a courier who takes it to the lab. So who all in the process have handled it up to it is means the case gets over. So this is a very crucial and a legal document, chain of custody form, which is supposed to be with every case. If it is not there, the case will not stand in the court of law. Other than that, other documents which are required is when we accept a case is basically the brief of the case, what is the case about, because without knowing what is the case about, we are not able to actually carry out, you can say, the analysis of that particular device. So if you know what you're looking for something like you said, ransomware. So we should know that we have to find something related to ransomware or cryptocurrency. If the case is related to say financial fraud, then we are looking for something related to the financial fraud. So you have to actually have a questionnaire, the brief of the case questionnaire, if it's related to say murder or if it's related to some anti-national activities. So the brief of the case, then as I said, you can say the questionnaire, the chain of custody form, and there are one or two more documents which are very important. But yes, chain of custody form is the most important document from the legal point of view. Also, I would like to add here is that, most of the cases coming to the lab nowadays, most of the cases are mobiles, right? So mobiles are actually, you can say out of the, you can say 10 cases which are coming to the lab, you can say 90% are mobile smartphones which are coming to the lab. And other wearables are also there. You have like smartwatches, as I said, you have IoT devices. Now you have a camera, your own camera in your house, you have a CCTV camera, you have other devices which are controlled. And out of this, at least 60% are in locked condition. So it becomes very difficult to actually bypass this particular kind of locks which are available. And also is that the backlog. There are so many cases which are coming to the lab. There are so many backlogs. So there are a lot of backlogs which are there. At least the lab has minimum 3 to 6 months of backlogs in every lab which is there. And also there's a lot of, you can say pressure on the forensic labs to actually do it in a much speedy way. So these are also things which actually are required in or which are relevant when we actually do the analysis part.
Sir, then what about the 65B of Indian Evidence Act? Like often the evidence, digital evidence, this act is often associated with digital evidence. That's why.
Okay, basically, I'll explain this. This is basically a certificate given by a person who's doing analysis or a person who's accessing to a content. It can be anyone. 65B of the Indian Evidence Act is basically used for admissibility of electronics evidence in the court of law. If you read that 65B as such. So even for example, as a forensic analyst as such, if something comes to me, if I'm making an image and doing analysis on it, so I give a 65B that whenever I made an image, the system was working fine and there's nothing wrong with it, and it's I who have made it. So that is a 65B you give to the court of law. Or if it's a mobile, whatever task you have done, you're trying to say that the system is fine, you are skilled, you know what you are doing, and you are telling the court. But 65B can be given by anyone, even if it's say a company, IT administrator who's sitting on the, you can say a server. If he sees something, if he takes a screenshot or takes a log, even he can give a 65B certificate. Even if a policeman who's doing a EFIR, for example, electronic FIR, even if he takes a printout, even he can give a 65B. 65B is basically a certificate under the Indian Evidence Act, which helps you in making your electronic evidence admissible in the court of law. That's it. So that is also required when you actually do the investigation, we also give a 65B. There are some observations of few people think it's required or not required. That's a different issue. But most of the labs do give 65B along with the analysis report.
Okay. Sir, with regard to cyber, it is evolving at an exponential rate. So, what all challenges you face so far in this field?
See, challenges, there are plenty. Now, to start with, we call it the problem of plenty. Means, see, first you had, every person had one mobile or didn't have a mobile also, he had a computer. Now, every house, if you try to see something, you'll find 10 to 20 devices in every house. You have a Wi-Fi router, you have you can say 5, 6 mobiles, you have a computer, you have a laptop, you have an iPad, you have a earbud, you have so much smart devices. So nowadays, there's a problem of plenty. There's so much things which comes with one suspect that it becomes very difficult to meet the time frame. So there's a delay. And second is problem of capacity also. Now, if you see, firstly used to give hard disk of say or mobiles of say hard disk and mobiles of 1 GB. Now you're getting in TBs. You have 1 TB hard disk. You have more than that capacity. So the capacity has also increased. So actually, if you say if you want to actually what to say, if you want to process the data, it becomes very difficult. Processing of data is very difficult in this. So it's problem of plenty while processing and problem of capacity while reviewing the data. So when you review also, it's very difficult. How much data can you review? So it takes time, right? Everything takes time. Now these are the classical problems. There's a lot of data to be analyzed, and you are running out of time. Next problem you can say is anti-forensics. Like most of the people, when the devices are going to be seized, they try to damage their devices. They try to wipe the data. They try to physically damage their devices. So this is called anti-forensic measure. So the devices coming, they are not neat and clean, they are damaged. So how can we extract data from that? That's a big challenge. One more big challenge is nowadays, as I said, is encryption. Encryption is a very big challenge because most of the devices are encrypted. So, bypassing encryption also is a big issue. Then locked devices, of course, I've told you. One more challenge which is affecting this particular field is the skilled manpower. There's very less people actually, in this field of doing forensic analysis or forensic investigators, whatever you call. So if you see, the skilled manpower is very less. So we have to build up the skilled manpower also in this. Next thing which comes in this field, I say, it's a very niche field. Very few people are into this field. It's very niche. You require passion and patience. Also, the tools are very costly here. If anyone wants to do anything related to cyber security, he can actually go and he can do it at his home. But if you have anything, you have to learn about forensics. You have to have the proper tools. You have to have the proper training. So tools and training are very costly in cyber forensics if you want to actually pick up this field. So this is also a challenge as such. Next challenge, because challenges are plenty. So next challenge, if you say the legal jurisdiction, like in the cyber world, is that crime takes place, it can take in India, but the attacker can be from anywhere in the world, right? So the jurisdiction is also a problem. Which law will be applied, right? So that is also a problem. Next problem, if you see the changing technologies, like you must be studying or you must be doing some work with or internship or working somewhere. If you see the technology, first you had a hard disk which had rotating parts. It had a platter, it had a read-write head. You must have read of it. It had a memory. Nowadays it's SSD, solid state devices. The technology itself has changed in hard disk, even in a memory card. So changing technology is also affecting, and they are posing a big challenge. For example, IoT, SCADA, drones are coming in, artificial intelligence is coming in. So there are a lot of problems which are there, but saying that, there are solutions also which are available, which are being developed over time, right? And last but not the least, the problem is the backlogs. You see, there are a lot of backlogs, as I said, which are there with the labs. And preservation of evidence, because evidence has to be preserved till the person is actually, you can say, set free, or he is accused, means he is made guilty by the court of law. So preservation is also a very big problem in digital forensics. So I've listed around 10 to 12 problems. I can list another 10 to 12, but these are the main problems which are associated with digital forensics as such.
Okay, sir. Now the very last question of the session, what advice you would like to give to new generation who want to pursue career in cyber forensics?
Okay, now cyber forensics, again, although it's a niche field, but there are a lot of sub verticals or disciplines in it. Like if you say you do computer forensics, you do mobile forensics, you do drone forensics, you do network forensics, you do cloud forensics, you do automotive forensics, IoT forensics, SCADA forensics, and I can go on and on. There are so many types of, you can say, areas of specialization which you can do. So what I recommend is they should do, they should select a few areas of specialization and try to, uh, go learn more about it. I called it a T model. If you see, its T model is there existing, which people actually prescribe to. If you see the letter T, it is flat on the top, and then you have one line going down. So you should know all the fields, but you should drill deep of within particular area of specialization so that you learn more. And now here also, if you see, you should have a proper skill set. For that, you should have a skill set, and people do ask you what are the skills which are required in forensics. See, firstly, you should know your subject. Like if you're a technical person, you know networking, you know something about computer systems, you should know about cybersecurity as a whole. It's a very big umbrella as such. Then you should have knowledge of forensic tools, both commercial as well as, you can say, open source tools. Analytical skills are very much required. So person who wants to get into this field have to have analytical skills, how we can analyze. Technical aptitude is required. Then you have laws. Now this field is a techno-legal field. When you prepare a report and go to the court should understand your report. So to make the court understand your report, you should know cyber laws of the land. Then only you'll prepare the report in such a way that the court will understand. So cyber laws is very important. Then communication skill, like how you go and represent in the court. You go as an expert witness in the court, right? The courts ask you a question. You should be able to answer this question. Before writing that, going to the court, you should be able to make a report. So the communication skills and writing skills, speaking skills, knowing your knowledge. So these are very important skills required. And also most important skill which I feel is passion and patience. You should have a lot of passions here. Like there's no timeline which you can actually fix while investigating a case or analyzing a case. Now, there's few rules also which people forget. Now, if you are into forensics as such, see, you should never mishandle the evidence as such, right? So you work on the image, you don't work on the original thing. These are basics, basically. Then you use licensed tools. Then you actually maintain integrity. You must have heard of hashing, how hashing is done, how imaging is done. So this is a field, if someone wants to get in, these are basics which has to be actually means practice. Now, I'd like to explain more on this because students may be more interested in this kind of thing. Now, if you see what happens is, how people also ask you, okay, how can I take this field? How can I actually get into this particular field? So what I want to say here is that you can get into this field even if you are, say, a diploma holder in IT also, because there are a lot of job profiles which is there. Job profile means you can be a lab assistant, you can be a technical assistant, you can be an expert witness. So there are a lot of job profiles which are there in this particular field as such. And also there are a lot of agencies who are hiring. You have the law enforcement agencies, the private firm, defense, forensic lab, freelancing you can do, you can teach, you can go to the academia. So there's a lot of scope, but people are not aware of this scope as such. Lastly, to sum up, I'll say the most important thing if you actually want to come into this field is you have to find a mentor. If you have a person who can guide you to go about this field, because I told you all the challenges also, because it's costly, tools are costly, internship. So mentor and internship, if you're able to get hold of these two things, you'll be successful in this digital forensic career. So these are very important aspects of digital forensics, and people are getting into it. We have a lot of students who are interested in this field and they are coming here. So let's see. Let's hope for the best.
Yes, sir. May the coming generation will be more skilled cyber experts. Okay, sir. It was nice interacting with you. Thank you for accepting our invitation on such a short notice. And I extend gratitude on behalf of the entire team of Clue for Evidence and our viewers.
Thanks a lot. I actually came here to motivate you and your team. In spite of shortage of time, I thought you all are doing a wonderful job, and you're actually bringing across a lot of skill set within the young people around. So that's why I actually came to actually motivate you and keep going. You're doing a wonderful job. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, sir.
Have a good day.